Hi everyone. Feel free to come a little bit closer if you want to, but you can stay where you are too.
Pastor in church.
This is the Drupal 8 media status update. And I've been given this one a couple of times. If you've seen it at DrupalCon, the last one in LA, it's very similar. It's been a little bit updated since then, but not too much. So if you did go see that, you probably might want to go to a different session. But if not, this is totally useful. And this is all available online too. We're keeping this presentation updated kind of throughout every time we give it. So this is a static URL that you'll always get the latest version. But I'll tag, it's in Git, I'll tag this event. But that way you're always getting the latest thing. So this is the Twin Cities 2015 edition. And I'm so happy to see you this afternoon. Let's see. Oh, plug in. There we go. So a little bit about me. My name is Reid. I've been involved in the Drupal community for almost 10 years now. And I currently work for Lullabot, which is a full-service consulting, design, development agency. And we are occasionally hiring, so go ahead and check us out. We just launched a new website with decoupled Drupal, so we're really happy with that. Go ahead and check that out. And I just got here today. I didn't get here too early because that's my new kid, Linus. He's like 3 months old now. And he has my same expression that when I do code reviews, he's like, wait, who wrote this? What does it do? He's got that down. And I have another son, Oliver, who's at home too. So that's a little bit about me. I enjoy cats, cat gifts, all sorts of thing cats. I'm a big Nebraska Cornhusker fan since I live in Omaha, Nebraska. And I like grilling too. Grilling's a fun thing. So that's a little bit about me, but let's dive into Drupal media stuff. So this is kind of our Drupal media core team, the last photo that we took back in 2014, I believe, in New York City. And we have a couple more people added on since then, but it is growing. And it's not just one person, it's not just me, but I kind of like to be a voice for this. And of course, it doesn't have to be just this people, it could be you too if you want to. And there's a later section on how to help. So we met in New York City at Nice Camp, the event there, because we were starting to think, okay, what are we going to do for Drupal 8? We've got all this stuff going on for Drupal 7. It's kind of a big mess. The media module isn't at a stable 2.0 release yet. Grumble, grumble, grumble from the crowd, I know. And there's new modules being added in, like Scald, that are alternatives to media module. We all seem to be kind of duplicating the work and not coming and working together. And it's not helpful when it's such an important thing, media handling. We have to get this right. So we really took that event as an opportunity to come together and kind of come up with this plan. And we had a big whiteboard, and we're like, okay, what can we share? What are the things that you need in this? What are the things that we need in this? Can we find some commonalities and things that we can work on together? And we really did. And there's 3 major parts that we came up with. So the first part is embedding stuff. That's your typically WYSIWYG stuff. That kind of component, embedding things, embedding entities, embedding files, embedding images, embedding videos, embedding other stuff like remote URLs like YouTube and Vimeo, that kind of stuff, tweets, all that kind of good stuff, and other various embedding stuff too, all under that umbrella. There's this component of browsing, how do I pick the items that are available to embed, or pick them for a field, that kind of stuff. So we came up with this browsing component that we kind of need to have this shared functionality. And then there's a storage component, which we didn't really agree on, but I think that was a good thing. Is everything supposed to be a file? Is everything supposed to be more abstract and a separate thing? Is a tweet a file? We don't really know. It kind of shoehorns things in. And so we kind of left that one as maybe let's work on our storage separately, but if we can make the other 2 things work with our 2 different storage components, maybe we have got a good shot with this. And so the goals that we came up with making these 3 components is that we want to make them independent, reusable, and pluggable. We want to make sure that we're approaching them with a good design from the first, that we're collaborating on the architecture, that we're sharing the resources on this kind of stuff and not duplicating effort, that we actually can build some momentum and not get stalled and be like, well, what's happening with Drupal 8 media? Nothing. We don't want that. And then it also helps us communicate a bit more if we're required to do this. So the first thing we're going to dive into is embedding, that first component. And this is, frankly, going to be the one that's the most useful to show. I've got the most to demo, and we'll do a live demo, because I can. So it's Entity Embed. It's the first thing that we worked on. It was a Google Summer of Code project last year, and it made really, really good progress. And so it's at the Entity Embed _ you can download it. It's usable right now in Drupal 8. There may be a bug with the latest Drupal 8 dev, which I'm going to fix this weekend. And it actually is usable. Someone backported it to Drupal 7. So those of you that want to grumble, and rightfully so, about Drupal 7 solutions, this may be something if you have new projects or are looking to fix maybe how you embed stuff with WYSIWYG, you might want to check that out. So Entity Embed, you can use it for Drupal 7. Yeah, we've got a few things remaining with it, just mostly related to usability. How do we select things? How do we display things? And we want to abstract this a little bit to encompass a few more things. But I wanted to just kind of dive into this to kind of grab your attention. So this is my local Drupal 7 install. Can everyone see that okay? Yeah? Okay. And I've got a test article that has a couple of lovely images attached to it. And so let's go through the kind of steps that I would do with Entity Embed, just kind of show you the whole process of using the module. So I'm going to go to Manage, Configuration, Content Authoring, Embed Buttons. So you can define any multiple number of embed buttons. Right now, they are per entity type, so you would have one for content or nodes. You'd have one for files, which could be images, video, audio, that kind of stuff. You could have one for users. You could have one for blocks, because blocks are entities in Drupal 8. So anything that is an entity in Drupal 8, you can embed with your WYSIWYG, which is the really cool thing about making this abstract and making it reusable. You can use this with anything in Drupal 8, and it works out really great. So I can even add, let's see, a block. We'll try this because I actually haven't done this yet. We'll do a block. And I'll hit save. And if you'll notice, I could upload an image for the button in the CK editor. And there's also this allow display plugins, which this is kind of the way that we're making this pluggable. There is a plugin in Drupal 8 that you could implement if you wanted to add another option for this. By default, with most entities, you can render them out of the box with Drupal 8. But if you want to have a very hard-coded way for, I want to embed content using this specific way that doesn't match up to anything, you can totally do that with just a little bit of custom code. So let's see, let's go back to our content authoring and go to our text formats and editors. And I'll go to full HTML since that's a nice secure one. And I can see here in my available buttons, in the first one in the button, the second row there's another E button because I haven't uploaded a logo. But if I hover over it, I see that that's block. That's my block embedding. So let's drag it in. And I'll remember what spot I put it in, third. And then the other key here is in your enabled filters, you want to enable this display embedded entities filter. That's what does all the magic for it. And you could also use this independently. If you wanted to have, not use WYSIWYG, but you wanted to have hey, embed file 1 here, just use the right markup, and this filter will take care of it for you. So let's save. All right, back to site. Now let's add some content. Let's add a new article. And I'll also make sure I'm switched to full HTML so I get that third button. There we go. So let's go through and let's embed some content. That's my first button here. Now, one of the things that we're working on still, I mentioned that second large component, the browsing. That still isn't quite ready for use yet. So right now we just have a very basic selection that's like an autocomplete based on the title. I do an autocomplete, I'm going to test article number 1. The intent is then once you have the browsing component installed and available, you will not see this, you'll see a browsing component. Or if you like this, you could keep it. That's up to you. This definitely works really easily. But it may not be the most usable for content administrators and content editors. But I'll select my item, hit next. So I can see that it's test article. I'm going to pick the plugin to render it with. And I'm going to pick label, because that's just like the title of the node, which will then, I get the option to link it to that node and embed. Oh no. All right. Hold with me. Let's see if we have a bug. All right, great. And that's why we don't do live demos. All right, let's try it again. Let's try it with a file.
So if we want to try this, we can download the module now?
Yes, you can download the module now. You may experience a couple bugs,
Okay.
but my intent is to fix it up this weekend. Let's see. Well, let's see. I might have some stored screenshots here. So I'll just go through this just to kind of show you the process here. So next, once I've selected the item, this is a file. I just pick out how to display it. So this is a file. I get to pick an image formatter. Because we're trying to also reuse field formatter. So anything that like you could format as a file or image, you can also pick here, if that made sense at all. So like Drupal 8 has different field types. There's an entity field type, entity reference. Anything that you can have as an entity reference field formatter, you can use as a plugin here out of the box, if it matches the entity type. There's also file and image fields that also have their own formatters, like image style, responsive picture. If you embed a file entity, you can use any of those field formatters as well as plugins out of the box. So like this display as image is just out of the box functionality. And then I pick the image style. I can pick to link it to the image or nothing. And I have to fill in alternate text or provide an empty string if I need to. We're nice to enforce some usability and some accessibility standards there. And so like if this were content, I'd pick the entity reference formatter called label, which I was trying to do, and I can use that. And the nice thing is it just puts the preview right in there for you. Like, no fuss, it works. Which is like one of the things that we're just pulling our hair out with trying to do right in Drupal 7. And you can even right-click on this and edit, change the way it's displayed, select a different thing instead, and go back to the first step, and it all works out of the box. And you can't change this, too. It's kind of like it's using a new plugin in CK Editor called the Widget plugin. So like if this were more advanced, like you were rendering an entire node in your WYSIWYG, you couldn't go through and change something in the embedded node. You'd have to go and edit that node to do that. So it locks that whole output, because it wouldn't be right if you could do that. And then the format for how it gets embedded. This gets a little bit technical, but it's just a new HTML tag called Drupal-entity. And then it uses just data attributes. So like data embed button is file. That gives us kind of a key for what kind of entity type it is. And it's even got if you look near the bottomish, it's got data entity UUID. So by default, we embed the unique ID of that entity and use that instead of the just auto increment ID. So when you deploy your content between servers, all this embedded stuff will still work. And we key things off the UUID, and it just kind of works under the box. Like, you don't have to enter the UUID, it just does it for you. Which I just think is like this, it works right. This moment that just, everything we've tried to work for, like our hard work and planning has paid off in this module so far. And I hope you would agree with that. Definitely, if you're thinking like, well, what if it can do this? What if it can do that? Well, let me know in a question afterwards, during questions, or see me afterwards or all this weekend. I would love to hear it. So yeah, that's Entity Embed. And that's like the biggest thing I have to show. And I feel a little bit bad because the rest is going to be a little bit dry, but we're going to kind of go through it just to kind of give you an idea of what the rest of the components are going to be. So writing this Entity Embed, we realized that like, oh, making an embed button that does something and has all these display plugins you can control, and uploading an image and a label, we want to reuse that for other stuff like URL embedding for remote like YouTube and Vimeo stuff. We want to use it for other stuff that could be embedded, like short codes, that kind of thing. And so we have a Google Summer Code project this year to kind of take what we did and learned in Entity Embed and make it into its own project that everything else uses. So there's not too much from this. It's worth mentioning because we've got a Google Summer Code student working on it, and I'm helping mentor that, and it's just a fun experience with that. But it's going to kind of help provide that base, and it's just going to be a dependency for everything. And I mentioned URL embedding. This is our second Google Summer Code project, and it's currently in development, not very usable right now. What I kind of took from all the Drupal 7 experience is with Media Module, when you want to use a remote thing, typically it like saves a local file as a YouTube video or whatever kind of local remote resource it is. It tries to save a local file that doesn't really correspond to anything on disk. It just stores a record. And I got to thinking that like, for most people, we don't really need that. Most people aren't going to really want to like view YouTube videos in their media browser. They're just going to have a URL that they paste in. And so we're kind of taking a step back with that and not requiring, like, we're just going to embed the URL and not have to save it as something local. So this is what this module is going to do. It's going to do the same thing kind of as Entity Embed. It's going to have its own HTML tag and a filter that'll convert stuff for you. And we're also going to use a new PHP library called Embed, aptly named. Since we're going to try and not do our own, like, hey, this URL, what does it correspond to? What's the embed HTML for this? We don't want to do the work for that, so we're going to outsource that, as all the good Drupal 8 stuff does now, to a separate library and help work with and collaborate with that library a bit. So that's the one that we picked for now. So yeah, that's the URL embed. So keep posted on that. We're going to try and hopefully have it usable by the end of the summer. Shortcodes. Shortcodes, like if anyone's used WordPress before, it's like, look, macros. Like, give me an ID and I'll transform it a little bit and spit out something else. Just very kind of simple like that. We want to make sure that's possible to do with this API. So we think we'll have a shortcode embed module that kind of uses the same thing. Like, you would define your shortcodes in the UI, or you could define them as code, as plugins, and have that. So that's something I've had to use on custom projects too, so we want to make sure we support that. All right, so that covers embedding. Any questions about embedding at all? All right, so the next component is the browsing. And so very similar to what we did with Entity Embed, with like, let's just not work with just files, let's work with everything. We had this grand plan, still have this grand plan, to make this component entity browser that works with everything, works with all entity types. It is currently in development. It's quasi-usable. And we have a Google Summer Code student working on this one as well, along with our team, to help kind of move development a little bit further. And so a little bit about this is that I'm really excited about this, but it's also a very hard component to get right. The embedding stuff feels easy now afterwards. It felt hard at first, but once we got it on the right path, I was like, yes, it's great. Now this is the hard part. So we want to make sure we're using stuff. So it should support any entity type. We want to make sure we use existing concepts, so individual tabs on a media browser. You kind of think there's an upload tab, or there would be a paste a URL tab. We want to make sure that we're encouraging reuse. So we kind of had this idea that, well, hey, there's the file field and image field in Drupal core. Those have field widgets, which are an upload widget. It could be possible that a file could have a paste a URL to the file widget. What if we just reuse those field widgets in our media browser? So we're kind of going to build it off that. So based on the entity type you have, whatever kind of widgets can be used for that entity type, you can use in the media browser and gather and collect multiple things all into one interface. Along with that, we want to make sure that you can use a view to select things. Since views is in core, we want to make sure that you can set up a view to pick files in a nice UI. This is a fun little architecture document. It's totally, I feel like it's crazy to show people. But we've got the widgets on the right side. We've got how to display it on the top left. How do we display what things are selected on the bottom left? And how do we pick which widgets to use? How do we make the UI for this media browser to be built and constructed by the site builder? And that all comes together into the entity browser. So it's not a simple thing at work here. And then I think they just recently integrated the entity browser with inline entity form in Drupal 8. So once you selected something, you can also edit it then, which is would be a very good use case. That's that. So that is entity browser. Big ambitions. I hope we can do that. So next I'm going to kind of hit the storage components. I typically come from the file entity module camp. Is everyone kind of familiar with file entity? Raise your hand if you are. That's most people, okay. So file entity basically takes, in Drupal 7, files are entities, but unlike users, taxonomy terms, and content, they didn't really have their own UI. You only interacted with files attached to things. You couldn't actually upload a file or delete it independently. And that's where file entity kind of took a job and made that UI. It allowed you to add fields to files, that kind of stuff. And so we want to port this to Drupal 8, and that's kind of our storage for media. And there is an unofficial port at the bottom. There's a GitHub link there, which is, again, I'll post these slides. I'll tweet them, and I'll post them on the session page, so you can click all to the goodness here. There's an unofficial port going that's pretty usable. The file entity maintainers themselves, myself included, kind of want to make sure to take a step back and reevaluate what we're doing with the module. What's the scope of the module? Should we make the part that allows files to be fieldable optional? What should be optional? What should be built in out of the box with the module? So we're just kind of planning a little bit with that. But there is something very usable right now with the unofficial port. And we'll definitely make sure to integrate with that a bit too. And then on top of file entity, the big thing, the media module. What does media module become in Drupal 8 now? It kind of it used to have all this stuff. What does it do? So it's pretty much just going to be a default configuration, or what you would think as a feature module in Drupal 7. That's kind of what it's going to be, its job in Drupal 8. It's going to ship with some default configuration, a default media browser, and some glue to tie everything together, like a default embed button for files, that kind of stuff. And that'll be kind of much it. Like, you can tweak the stuff after it's been installed however you want. But there's a lot less responsibility sitting in this module now, which is super great because there's been a lot of problems trying to maintain this module in Drupal 7. So that's the kind of the plan for that. And then there is a separate storage called Media Entity. Has anyone worked with the Scald module before? No, one person a little bit. No, okay. So the Scald module in Drupal 7 kind of took a more abstract approach to storing files and things. Instead of using files, what Core already uses and provides, it provided its own thing called an atom as like an item. So there could be a tweet atom or a video atom or an image atom. And that kind of represented how it was stored. It was this other level that was a little bit more abstract. This is continuing on in the Media Entity module. So it's more of an abstract concept. But it is a little bit more usable at this point. So if you feel comfortable with that, I feel free to go ahead and try it. They do have a basic editorial UI in place. And they're working on providers like, they already have some working providers like YouTube, local files, that kind of stuff. They are still working on rendering, which is kind of a big thing too. But that should be, they're making good progress on that. And so yeah, here's like a UI of creating a YouTube video, which I personally don't understand quite as much, because it's like, I don't really need to create a YouTube video, it already exists. Yes?
So did you say that this media entity was doing similar to what Scald was trying to do?
Correct. It's like the continuation of what, it's like the Scald port in Drupal 8, essentially. It has a lot of the same people working on it.
It does. Okay.
Yeah. Because they wanted to kind of get away from the terminology of atom and bring it more into our media namespace. Yeah. Let's see. And then like you can edit the YouTube video. So this is the basic editorial UI, so you control where it points to. Some stuff is read-only in this case. Like if this was a tweet, you'd paste in the tweet URL, that kind of stuff. This is just so totally fun to try and explain all these different modules because they all have very similar names. So media pink eye, it's not like the disease. Don't think of it that way. It was explained to me by Yanez, the author, and I totally forgot what he had said about it. There's like some other cultural reference to pink eye that's just not disease connotated. Anyway, media pink eye is like the media entity version of the media module. So it brings everything together, makes it usable into one UI, and kind of makes it like, hey, you want to try everything out of the box based on media entity instead of file entity. So that's that, and that is usable at this point, or at least tryable. We're working on cropping, so like there's all these different cropping modules in Drupal 7, and we're trying to bring them all together with the same API and get a little bit of shared resources there. It's mostly an API, so I wouldn't recommend checking it out too much, but if you're interested in helping, that would be awesome. There's the fallback formatter. So those of you familiar with file entity in Drupal 7, there's this concept of rendering files that like, okay, I have a video file. I'm going to go to the first thing I've configured. Okay, the first thing I've configured to try and display is YouTube video. Hey, YouTube video file formatter, is this something that you can render? Yeah, no? Okay, I'm going to move on to the next thing, which is like HTML5 video. Hey, HTML5 video formatter, can you render this thing? Yes? Okay, cool. I'm going to output is you. So it's this concept of like falling back to trying different things with different priority first. Because if you've got all sorts of things as representative as video files, YouTube and local stuff, you want to have different ways to display them. So this concept of like trying different things, we put into our own formatter. It's called the fallback formatter. And then just a little UI of that. So you pick which formatters are enabled. You can drag and drop them in the order you want to try, and you can configure each of them individually then as well. You may have a use case for this. This is also available in Drupal 7 as well. So it's out there, it's available. It's kind of like one of those things where like, hey, this little functionality, we could probably move to a separate thing. So we did.
And is something like that dependent on, let's say, what the visitor to your site has available, and that's why it would go through that fallback process? Because the browser might not render it correctly?
It's not as much like client fallback. It's more like it's more of a server-side fallback. Like, hey, can you render this thing or display this? Okay, I'm going to use you and display your output and stop. It's less of a client fallback kind of a thing. Yeah.
Okay. Because you're testing the thing itself.
Yeah, so it'd be testing like the actual object, the file entity object in Drupal. Yeah, correct. Recycled formatters is a little fun one, and I love the name of this. So if you have a file and an image field, two different fields in Drupal 7, and if you upload an image to your file field, you can't format it as an image. You only have the file field of formatters available. And so I wrote a module in Drupal 7. It's the second one linked there, the file image formatters, that lets you reuse between the two fields. And it's kind of has that same concept, like, hey, is this file an image? If so, okay, I can render using this image formatter. If not, it falls back to the next thing, or if you used it with the fallback formatter. And I kind of want to take this to the next step and be able to reuse formatters between file, image, and entity reference fields, all between them, until Drupal Core at some point decides just to have entity reference. We'll probably need this. So like if you, yes?
Sorry, does this help with the thing now where to add an SVG file, you have to you can't put it in an image field, you have to put it in a file field, but then it won't render out as an SVG image?
So the question is, how does this solve the issue of not being able to add SVGs to image fields? I'm not sure if that's an image field issue or not. What's the specifics behind that?
Oh, like if you try to load.
Oh, I bet the image toolkit can't render it.
Field, it won't render, so you have to make a file field.
Got it.
And I haven't had any good luck getting them to render through there.
Yeah. I'm guessing that you'd...
This might...
Yeah, I'm guessing in this case you'd probably want to write a custom image field formatter that would render the SVG how you want it to.
Is there a difference between the GD toolkit versus maybe image?
Yeah, maybe image...
That's a good question.
Yeah, maybe a separate image toolkit like ImageMagick might be able to process it. That might be worth a try. Yeah. Kind of similar to this concept a bit, but yeah. If you had, in that instance, uploaded it to a file field, then if you had an image field formatter, then you could use it on that. Yeah, exactly. File downloads, like tracking file downloads. We kind of built this into file entity. We gave it a unique URL, like file/1/download, and then a unique token. So someone couldn't crawl your site for file 1/download, file 2/download, file 3/download. We made it protectable a bit with a unique URL. But then I realized like we should probably abstract this and kind of have a official file download module moving forward in Drupal 8. There's kind of a couple different ones out there right now that kind of all do the same thing. And it'd be nice if this module could like log downloads for you, this file from this user or this IP address at this time, that kind of stuff. Would be nice. So that's kind of the overview of the modules and the ecosystem that we have going on. It's a lot of planning still, and I try not to lose hope about that like I know that Drupal 8's coming into a release very soon, and we feel like we're going to be playing catch up. So like, I don't know, we struggle with that a bit. We're trying to make more progress. We struggle, with staying communicated with each other since we're all remote and it's an open source project and people can come and go as they leave. You know, I had a kid three months ago and I kind of dropped off for a little bit because I had to, and I naively was like, sweet, I'll have all this open source programming time and I'll have paternity leave. No, that didn't work out very well. I learned my lesson with having 2 kids now. And, you know, funding issues too. I mean, it's a continual struggle with us. And we're not an official initiative, so we don't get like this big status at DrupalCons and that kind of stuff. We're still kind of a grassroots kind of thing. Trying to make this better and doing it on our own time and our own dime. So we're trying to get better. So last, I'd like to kind of touch on how you can get involved. And there's going to be a lot of resources here. Let's see. So every Wednesday morning, U.S. Central Time, we have a Scrum meeting in the #Drupal-Media IRC channel. Feel free to come around, ask questions. The last couple months we haven't kept it as regular, but definitely come pop in anytime if you want to. We're putting all of our code actually on GitHub first, and then mirroring it back to Drupal.org when we commit stuff or merge pull requests. So that we have a Drupal-Media GitHub organization where you can kind of see all the stuff that we're working on. We use Hackpad, or I guess what's now Dropbox Notes, for like writing architecture planning. Like, so if you want to poke in and see, like, there's a big planning document about the URL embed module and like details and stuff. If you want to poke at that, you can go to that URL. We have a group on groups.drupal.org/media. Where we try and post stuff that's happening. If you want to contact me, I'm at Dave Reid on Twitter. It's Dave Reid everywhere. I don't have a handle at all. And we do have a website. We're still trying to figure out how to use it and bring everything together correctly. So mostly just keep posted to the groups.drupal.org place. And I just started this a couple days ago. The Drupal 8 Media Guide. I'm trying to make sure that as we're going along, we kind of do a good job of documenting how to use all this stuff together and how to bring it all together. So this is its own Git repo, and literally it's just how to, like, that page right now. But our intent is to keep moving forward with this, and kind of, I've got the structure kind of planned out. And this is totally one way if you wanted to help write documentation for us. And we use gitbooks.io, so you can download like whatever we're working, this current document as an EPUB or a PDF to your mobile, whatever you want to do. But that's also, it's a repo under our GitHub organization, so like you can make a pull request for our documentation to help improve the media guide. Because we haven't ever had this before, and I thought it'd be a really good idea to start working on this now. That way, when we do have these modules that are ready to use, like we can point, hey, here's the media guide. Here's how to put everything together. It's a crazy idea. So yeah, we're working on that. And if you actually like want to help out, there's upcoming events. There's a sprint on Sunday at the Nerdery here this weekend. You can I'll be there for up until like 1 p.m. So feel free to come stop on by and ask if you want to help somehow, or if you just want to talk through like a problem you're having with Drupal 7 media stuff, and like give me a gut check for if what you're wanting to do or can't do right now will work with Drupal 8. I would love that. I'd love that. That's super helpful to me too. It's totally not a code contribution. It's like, give me your use case. What are you trying to do? I want to make sure it's possible for you to do in Drupal 8. And we're also going to work on bugs and working on pushing stuff forward. It is only a one-day sprint, so it's hard to get momentum from that, but it's still time to sprint together. There is an upcoming event at Nice Camp. I mentioned it the last time. We kind of used it as a springboard to move all this progress forward, and we're going to kind of use that this year. We're trying to get everyone together in the same room so we can sprint all week on this stuff. So I'm hoping that week in July we have a really good amount of progress to show. And if you want to have a sprint, let me know at another event. So that's kind of all I have. Wish that my live demo wasn't buggy. I could show more of that. But I'm totally going to open up for questions if you guys have any questions at this time. Yeah.
So for Drupal 8 media, the module itself, media, you said it's like a feature module and it just has default configurations. Is that all it has, or is it still going to be a dependency to use all of the other modules you described?
So the media module itself in Drupal 8 will be a feature module, but it won't be a dependency for like everything else.
Okay.
Like all the other things, like entity embed, entity browser, those will be the dependencies
Okay, that's fine.
to bring everything together.
Okay.
But it's like, hey, do you want some out-of-the-box media module management? Just install this module and all the dependencies, and you'll be set. And if you want to, you can.
It's like the complete opposite of what it is in settings right now.
Totally the opposite, and that's totally intentional.
Well, I think it's better.
Yeah. It shifts a lot of the responsibility into those separate components. I think we're still going to end up with a lot of responsibility in the entity browser component. That's my concern right now. Because we've shown that the embedding, we're golden on that. But the browsing is definitely my concern right now. But yeah, like not having to maintain a whole lot of code in the media module, it's like, yeah, I'm okay with that. So, yes.
Is the Drupal entity tag actually stored, like in Drupal 7 or with that JSON and stuff?
Yes, excellent question. So in Drupal 7, when you embedded something with media module, it stored it in a JSON thing in the body, and that I'm very sorry for that decision. No, it's in Drupal 8, it's actually stored as that Drupal-entity HTML tag. That's what it's stored as in the database. And then it's just converted with using the filter system.
So do we have any migration support?
Um,
From 7 to T8?
There is no migration support currently, no. We haven't had too many people actually been working on that yet. I'm assuming that maybe we could make something kind of generic that could be used. I'm not sure how much out of the box we can do for migration, because it'll depend a lot on what people have. And things won't map quite as much between the old style and how things were displayed versus this new style with the display plugins. That may be more up to the individual site to implement. But we definitely want to at least, that would be maybe a good documentation thing, like to put in the guidebook, like how do you migrate this stuff, at least as a start. So yeah. Yes.
You talked a bit about how so many of these modules have similar names. I think that's really relatable to anyone who's approached it for the first time in a while. I tend to be someone, I'll build a site and then I'll be away from Drupal for a bit, come back to it to relearn all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to D6 and all this, where I would feel like the philosophy of media amongst the people who build it has changed from we're atomizing all these different features versus we have a one-stop solution for everything. And can you talk a little bit about the philosophy of the group of people who have been contributing to media functionality in Drupal the last couple of years? Because every time I check in on it, it feels like there's a whole new idea on how to do it, and that's great because it's exciting. And it's not if you stick with it, it's not impossible to learn or anything. But I'm curious to know, when a new way of doing it, is it a result of being frustrated at the old way, or a excitement about the new way, or just change in the membership of the group?
Gotcha. Really excellent question. So I'm just going to repeat it for the audio. Kind of speaking to the dynamics of these kind of evolutionary steps in media handling, between 6 and 7 and now 7 and 8. I think it's definitely a large amount of frustration and a large amount of, wow, that didn't work very well. Let's maybe take another stab at this from what we've learned over the last 5 years. That's been my major role in this. I've got in my head every single bug report that has been come in from the media WYSIWYG handling issue, and I'm I am super determined to make sure that does not happen in the entity embed module, that it just works. So I don't think the people are necessarily changing. We've pretty much had a static group over the last couple of years, especially as this new plan has developed. I think it's more been an opportunity of let's get in the room together and let's plan. What are our common components? We never got the chance to do that. It was all like, well, there's this media module. I guess we'll keep working on that. And Acquia kind of took it as the first version for Drupal Gardens. And then I kind of took over as a maintainer when I was at Palantir.net and kind of pushed it another forward. And we started getting the 2X branch in because it was more of like a retrospective, kind of how can we improve from this. Yeah. Does that help answer that a bit?
Yeah, comparing it to other big parts, like views or fields, which started off as external projects and now both are in core. It feels like they got more and more canonical. Like just this is how everyone used it, now we'll make it official. Media doesn't seem to have caught that fire.
Oh yeah, totally.
Right.
Yes, yeah, and I totally feel that's like a confidence issue. I never felt like I could ever say like, hey, you need to do media handling in your site? Yeah, totally use the media module. I've been 100% like, well, media module's there. If you have this use case, it's good for that. But if not, maybe here's some other alternatives for you. And that's just a reflection of the current status of it. With the new plan, like anti-embed, we are 100% committed to like, all right, you want to embed stuff in your WYSIWYG? This is what you're going to use. We're going to define the literal HTML tag to embed stuff. And if you want to work with it, you need to reuse this. And like, we want to make sure that we're the definitive way to embed, we're the definitive way to browse for stuff. And I think that gives us a better start. Because that gives us like those two good solutions to building off of. And that way we can be like, okay, you want media handling in Drupal 8? Well, here are our two main solutions. They're both kind of built off the same thing, but here's their pros and cons. Like, we can really do a better evaluation of that. And I think that's where, the D8 Media Guide will come in handy too. Helping with that terminology, helping with explaining the situation and the ecosystem a bit. So, yeah. All right, any other questions at all? Yes.
With semantic versioning, do you see media like lining up in one of these 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, 8.4?
Like to be included in core?
Well, to be like...
or just to be semantically versioned itself?
Like, well, isn't the semantic versioning, like that's where API things would change and you could, if you have like expansions in this system and it's going to be, maybe you haven't thought about that.
Yeah, I don't think there have been a lot of people that have planned about how Contrib uses semantic versioning in Drupal 8.
We're just going to do it. We just don't know how yet.
Well, like we don't have an architecture to support semantic versioning for Contrib yet. I haven't seen anyone using it yet, actually. Like everyone's just been using the standard like 8.x-1.x versions, and that's it. Yeah, I'm not sure how we're going to handle that. It's just totally been not like, oh, everyone's doing this, so we're going to do that.
My question is, you haven't had much leverage because you're behind a lot of other initiatives that are going into core. So when that smoke clears, you think you'll be picked up and, maybe.
Maybe.
Because when you think about, when we talk about the future of Drupal, right, and how it needs to be more user-friendly, I mean, this really is, like, this is the thing to pick up, right? I mean, after WYSIWYG now, this is like, what does the WYSIWYG do, right? Mm-hmm. This is all the stuff.
Yeah, I mean, based on the work that we're doing with the major components, I could totally see like entity embed going into a minor or a major release of Drupal 8, like an 8.2 or something like that. Like, that would be my dream, kind of. I mean, it doesn't mean that no one has to maintain that code once it goes in, but it is a little bit of a nice like, it got accepted. It's the definitive thing, de facto, everyone's going to use it, kind of way. And that's our goal. So, getting picked up by core would be part of that plan, but it's not like our end goal. We just want to make stuff that works. That's our end goal. So, yes.
The media browser, will that have a drag and drop feature for uploading media, like WordPress?
When you mean drag and drop, how do you...
You're going to add media, right from, and I'm talking more I'm especially interested in just users, non-embed users. So you like WordPress, you say you want to add media, and it opens up the media browser, and then you can either select something from that's already there in their library, or drag and drop. Just say drag and drop your PDF, your MP3, whatever,
Like drag and drop it into the librry,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
And it uploads
From
it.
your local browser.
Yeah.
Browser.
So it's worth maybe showing that Drupal Core did add. Oh, that didn't work. Let's see. Nope, didn't work. Okay. Supposedly, Drupal Core added drag and drop at least for like its own widget. I don't think we've specifically like planned for that yet. I think we should put that on our roadmap from a usability standpoint. Yeah, that's an interesting thing.
And then one more
Yeah.
part or extension of that is HTML players and playlists for audio and video. It's very important to me on my one particular site that I own, that I be able to have a user-friendly interface for setting up playlists. Like in an artist's own profile page, and then to be able to upload their stuff, and then they be able to set up their own playlists, stuff like that, or create a story. That will have as part of it. Here's my media. Here's what I want to show you guys, or I want to show you a score, and it'll be a PDF that's readily uploadable and downloadable. So it's like I said, it's just a mess and desync. I can't.
Yeah. I don't think I know of anything like off the top of my head that would be like an out of the box thing for that. At least with what we have planned, but I don't see why it couldn't be built on this stuff. I definitely want to make sure that we have something I didn't really touch on is that having a way to display audio and video files out of the box with all of this, I think, is important. We kind of built that into file entity in Drupal 7 with just a very basic HTML5 formatter for audio and video. It doesn't offer a lot of customization. It's just a basic like video tag with the options for like if you have a file field, if you have multiple values, are they different sources of the same thing, or are they different 5 actual videos? So we'll definitely make sure that we have something like that to get basic capability out of the box for audio and video with this in Drupal 8. But more advanced than that, like it may be a custom display plugin for that entity type. Like when you embed as playlist kind of a thing. Like I could totally envision that happening. Like it will take a little bit of custom code, but like it'll integrate with everything. So yeah. All right. Yes.
The entity embed button, does it make any sense, or is it even a stretch to have finer granularity than just entity like linked bundles?
Oh, yeah. Let me show you. It does have that granularity. So go to embed button, node. I can pick which content type is available to embed.
You're kind of
Oh, sorry. And like if I pick, I don't have different taxonomy terms. Do I have something that has more than one option? No, just content. So yeah, if there are different types available of that entity type, yeah, you can pick them. Yeah. So you could have one for articles. You could have one for another node type, like separate buttons for that, or all in one, if you wanted to. Yeah.
So I tried to put that entity embed on a state site now, and it didn't seem to work.
Is
That's
it
a typical user complaint, right? It doesn't work.
is it a very recent install of Drupal 8?
No, it's a beta.
It's
It's the Aqua beta.
okay. Yeah, it's totally fun. Like trying to document which version of Drupal 8 core it works with yet. I'm hoping that once Drupal 8 beta is tagged yet or has not yet been tagged, I'm not sure. Once we hit that beta status with Drupal 8, like we'll probably be like, hey, it works with this beta 1. Because like we've been chasing Drupal 8 development for a while. Like, so It kind of depends on which version you're using. Like, I know that with a most recent version, there's one bug on it, and we're going to fix it. But if it's an older version of Core, it may not work. Yeah. Or I guess our release candidate is what I'm talking about with Core. Beta 10. What's...
And now I can't uninstall it.
Well, that doesn't sound good if you can't uninstall it.
The checkbox is shaded.
That may be because, like, something, like some default configuration has to be removed first. Like, there's a filter that depends on entity embed or something.
They
Like,
didn't add anything to
I
it.
think that's a Drupal 8 problem.
yeah, it's the uninstalling of modules is really
That's
wonky.
just a UX, like, fall down.
So,
That's
Josh,
just safe to
DIS,
No, you can't disable modules anymore.
Josh, PMU, is there anything? Okay.
Yeah. We'll figure it out.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I mean, we'll... Yeah, it's hard to document, like, hey, the latest version of embed, you have required this version of Core. We'll maybe do a better job of that in the future then. All right, any other questions at all?
Are they talking about the rendered winter genies?
When it's ready is always the answer. If you want my personal prediction of when Drupal 8 is going to be released, I think it will be... I always go pessimistic and I say February 2016.
Wow.
But I think there's a lot of momentum. It could happen by like October. There's a possibility. Like if things go well and like there's not a whole lot of criticals issued that are open very late once everyone starts trying it, like that, it could be October. So we'll say October to February of next year. That's my window. All right. Feel free to snag me in the hallway, tweet me, find me on the sprint day. So thank you very much for coming.